The professionals most disrupted by AI right now are not the ones with 20 years of experience. The data on this is now clear, and it points to something almost no AI content is saying out loud. Because the story that's been running quietly in the background of every AI headline is that experienced professionals are on the wrong side of this transition, that younger, tech-native workers have a natural advantage, that the 20 or 25 years someone spent building expertise puts them behind, not ahead. What this video is going to show is that that story is factually inverted. Not as reassurance, not as a silver lining, as a mechanism, a specific structural reason why your kind of knowledge does something with AI that a less experienced colleague simply cannot replicate yet. That mechanism has a name. And once it lands, it changes everything about how you look at the tool on your desk. So let's start with how that story assembled itself in the first place. Here is how the story assembled itself. A younger colleague mentioned a tool in a meeting and everyone nodded like they already knew. You nodded too. Or you read a headline about AI replacing white-collar workers, and you felt the pull of it, the way it snagged on something you'd already been half thinking. Or you watched someone 15 years younger appear completely at ease with something that felt, to you, like standing in a room where everyone speaks a language you never learned. None of these moments announced themselves as evidence, but your brain assembled them into a verdict anyway. The verdict: I am on the losing side of this. That verdict feels like observation. It's actually a story, and the data does not support it. Research published this year from Stanford economists looked at actual employment data, not surveys, not projections, but ADP payroll records. What they found was specific and measurable. In AI-exposed jobs, workers aged 22 to 25 saw a 16% employment drop since late 2022. That's not a forecast. That's what's already happened. The disruption is falling hardest on the workers who have the least experience, not the most. And when Stanford economist Eric Brynjolfsson was asked why, his answer was precise. He said, more senior workers have more tacit knowledge. They know the tricks of the trade that maybe never get written down. Those are not the things that AI has been able to learn. Tacit knowledge, that's the mechanism. And it is worth pausing on that phrase, because it names something you have been carrying for 20 years without ever needing to call it anything. Which brings us to what that actually means. Tacit knowledge is not information. It is not the kind of thing that lives in a manual, a course, or a training dataset. It is the accumulated pattern recognition that comes from being inside a profession long enough to see how things actually work versus how they're supposed to work on paper. It is knowing that the third recommendation in a report is politically untenable. Not because you read that anywhere, but because you've watched 3 attempts at it over 12 years and seen each one quietly buried. It is knowing which data point in a financial analysis your CFO will challenge before she even sees it, because you know how she reads numbers. It is knowing that a certain type of email from a certain type of stakeholder means something different from what it says. I knows none of this. Not because it's not intelligent enough, but because it was never in the room. PwC analyzed close to 1 billion job postings across 6 continents for their 2025 Global AI Jobs Barometer. One of their central findings: AI amplifies expertise. Industries and workers who bring deep domain knowledge to AI tools are achieving productivity growth 3 times higher than those who don't. The amplification is not equal. It is proportional to what you already know. That is the inversion this video exists to name. The tools are not rewarding tech-native comfort. They are rewarding the kind of knowledge that took years to build and that cannot be downloaded. So here's what that looks like when you actually use the tool. Here is what happens when an experienced professional and an early career professional both ask Claude the same question in the same organization. The early career professional gets an answer. It's well-structured, grammatically clean, logically organized. And it may be missing something crucial: a political constraint, a legal exposure, a stakeholder dynamic, a precedent from 2019 that changed everything. The experienced professional gets the same answer. And they catch what's missing. They know what to push back on. They know what to add. Not generically, but specifically, because they've seen this situation before. That gap between what the tool produces and what the tool produces in your hands is not small. It is the entire difference between output that gets used and output that gets set aside. PwC's research found something that runs counter to almost every AI narrative in circulation. AI skill premiums are highest not in roles requiring technical expertise, but in roles requiring the combination of domain experience and AI fluency. The wage premium for workers who bring both is now 56%, up from 25% just 1 year ago. Not tech skill alone. Domain experience plus AI fluency. The two together. There is a reason for this that goes deeper than productivity numbers. Junior workers who use AI, and the data shows they use it frequently, are using it without the error detection layer. They don't know when the output is subtly wrong. They don't know what the AI assumed, where it simplified, where it drew on a precedent that doesn't apply to this organization. You do. That is not sentimentality about experience. That is a structural advantage. Johns Hopkins researchers who've studied AI's role in the 2026 workforce put it simply. AI requires judgment and strategy, and that is often less developed in younger workers. The technical comfort your younger colleagues have is real, but technical comfort without judgment produces output that still needs someone to review it. That reviewer, the person who knows what the AI got wrong before anyone else does, is you. This is what mid-transition looks like, not falling behind. Approaching the intersection, where your expertise becomes irreplaceable. If what you just heard opened something, if you're starting to see your 20 years differently, there's a structured path for translating that reframe into a working AI toolkit, a repositioned career story, and a concrete 90-day plan. It's called the Adaptive Professional, and it's built specifically for someone at this moment. Someone who has the expertise, now needs the integration. The link is in the description. Now let's make this concrete, something you can do before the week is over. The reframe is real. But a reframe without an action is just a more comfortable version of standing still. So here's the specific thing to do before Friday, and it takes under 10 minutes. Open Claude. Take the last deliverable you produced that required real professional judgment. A recommendation, a report, an assessment, a decision memo. Paste it in. Then type this. What are the 3 most important assumptions this is making? And which one is most likely to be wrong? What comes back will not be perfect. That's the point. Your job is not to accept it. Your job is to read it as someone who has been in this profession for 20 years and identify exactly where the AI's pattern recognition is missing your context. That gap between what it sees and what you know is not the tool's failure. It is the demonstration of your advantage, because here is what you're actually doing in that 10 minutes. You're finding the intersection, the specific place where your tacit knowledge and Claude's processing speed meet. That intersection is different for every profession, every organization, every person. And the only way to find yours is to go looking. One task, one attempt. Before Friday. Not to learn AI, not to become a tech person. To find out whether this specific thing, your expertise applied to this specific tool, produces something useful. Everything else builds from that answer. The data tells you the structural advantage is real. The only question left is whether you use it. If this landed and you want to go further, the link in the description and the pinned comment will take you to the Adaptive Professional. It's where the reframe becomes a plan. There's a moment when you knew something at work that I would never know. A read on a situation, a pattern you'd seen before. What was that moment? So here is what you now have. Not a tooltip, not a 5-step framework, a different account of who you are in this transition. One that is grounded in actual data and a specific mechanism, not reassurance. The ground moved. The story of who gets left behind moved with it. And the new version of that story, the one the data is telling, is not the one you've been carrying. The thing worth holding on to from this is not a statistic. It's a sentence. Your 20 years is not competing with the tool. It is what makes the tool produce something real. That's the inversion. And it changes what comes next. Because once you understand that the advantage is structural, not emotional, not motivational, not something you need to earn, the question is no longer whether you can do this. It becomes something more specific. Where exactly does your expertise meet this tool in your actual job on a real task? That question is answerable before Tuesday. It doesn't require a course, it doesn't require comfort. It requires one real task, and the judgment you've already built, applied to an output you've asked the tool to produce. You've been mid-transition longer than you think. You just didn't have a name for the advantage you were carrying. Now you do.